I stood in the middle of a glittering gala, surrounded by 200 of Dallas's elite, my heart pounding like a drum. The chandeliers sparkled, the champagne flowed, and every eye was on me. I leaned into the microphone, my voice steady, and said, "Last night, I destroyed my ex-girlfriend's world in front of everyone here, and I don't regret a single second." The crowd gasped, whispers rippling through the room like wildfire. How did I, Tyler, a 29-year-old software developer from Dallas, end up here? To understand that, you have to go back to the beginning, back to when my world was simple, full of hope, and centered around one thing: love for the Dallas Cowboys. My life revolved around football. My apartment was a shrine to the Cowboys. Think $2,500 season tickets pinned to the wall, a signed Emmitt Smith jersey worth $800 framed above my couch, and a mini fridge stocked with game day beers. I wasn't rich, pulling in $75,000 a year coding apps, but I was happy. I lived for Sunday games, the roar of the crowd, the smell of nachos in the stands. That's where I met Madison, at a sports bar downtown during a Cowboys game against the Eagles. She walked in wearing a Dak Prescott jersey, her blonde hair tied back, cheering louder than anyone when we scored. I was hooked. She knew the playbook, argued about third down calls, and even bet me $20 we'd win by a touchdown. I thought I'd found my soulmate. We started dating, and for 2.5 years, it felt like a dream. Madison was 27, a marketing assistant with big ambitions and a smile that could light up a room. We'd watch games together, her curled up on my couch, screaming at the TV when the refs made a bad call. She'd quote stats, like how Zeke Elliott ran 1,600 yards in 2016, and I'd stare at her thinking, how did I get this lucky? We'd plan game day rituals, wings from Rusty's, her lucky blue socks, my Cowboys cap I never washed. I even took her to a game in Las Vegas, splurging $1,200 on tickets. She cheered so hard her voice cracked, and I remember thinking, this is it. She's the one. But something felt off during that Vegas trip. She was distant, her phone buzzing constantly. I'd catch her texting, then she'd flash a smile and say, "Just work." I brushed it off. Love makes you blind, right? But the signs piled up. She'd cancel plans last minute, saying she had a client dinner. Her stories didn't add up, like when she said she was at a marketing conference, but posted a selfie in a cocktail dress at some swanky rooftop bar. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering why my gut was screaming at me. Have you ever felt that? That sick twist in your stomach when you know something's wrong but can't prove it? The truth hit me like a freight train at a steakhouse downtown. It was our 2.5-year anniversary, and I'd saved up $300 for a fancy dinner, filet mignon, the works. I was nervous, ready to talk about moving in together. Madison looked stunning in a black dress, but her eyes were cold, like she was somewhere else. Halfway through dessert, she set down her fork and said, "Tyler, I need to be honest." My heart stopped. She leaned forward, her voice calm, and said, "I've never cared about football. Not once." I laughed, thinking it was a joke, but her face was stone. She kept going. "Zoe taught me how to fake it. Stats, plays, all of it. I needed someone stable, and you were easy." The room spun. Zoe, her best friend, had coached her to play me. I saw it all. The lucky socks, the game day wings, her fake cheers. Every moment I'd cherished was a lie. I stammered, "Why?" She shrugged like it was nothing. "You were fun for a while, but I'm moving on." She stood, grabbed her purse, and walked out, leaving me with a $300 bill and a shattered heart. I sat there, the clink of glasses around me fading, the weight of her words sinking in. My entire world, built on love, trust, and football, was a fraud. I drove home in silence, the city lights blurring through my tears. My apartment, once my sanctuary, felt like a museum of betrayal. Every Cowboys poster, every ticket stub mocked me. I sank onto the couch, staring at that $800 signed jersey and wondered how I'd been so blind. The worst part? I still loved her. I kept replaying her words, searching for a hint it wasn't true, but deep down, I knew. Madison had played me, and I'd fallen for every second of it. That night, I made a choice. I wasn't going to stay broken. I didn't know how, but I'd rise from this. I'd make her regret underestimating me. The question was, how does a guy like me, a regular coder with a broken heart, fight back against someone like Madison? What would you do if your entire world turned out to be a lie? Madison didn't just break my heart that night at the steakhouse. She shattered every piece of who I was. As I sat there, staring at the $300 bill she'd left me with, her words echoed in my head. You were easy. Easy? I'd given her 2.5 years of my life, every game day, every late-night coding session to afford those Vegas tickets. And it wasn't just the lies about loving football. What came next was worse. Madison had been tearing me apart behind my back, and I was about to find out just how deep her betrayal went. Have you ever been blindsided by someone you trusted? That moment when the ground vanishes beneath you? It started with a text from a mutual friend, Jake, a week after the breakup. He forwarded me a screenshot from Madison's private group chat. Yeah, the one I wasn't in. It was from our Vegas trip when she'd been working on her phone. The message read, Tyler's such a tutorial mission. Wait till you meet Alex. My stomach churned. Alex? I scrolled further, and it got uglier. She'd been seeing this guy, Alex, for months during our relationship. A rich entrepreneur, penthouse in Dallas, the kind of guy who wore $5,000 suits and drove a Porsche. In Vegas, while I was screaming my lungs out at the Cowboys game, she was sneaking off to meet him at some rooftop bar, laughing about how I was clueless. I could hear her voice in my head, mocking me, and it burned. But it wasn't just the cheating. Madison had sabotaged me in ways I never saw coming. Jake sent me another message, this one from Zoe. Make sure Tyler doesn't apply for that Nexus Tech job. He's too comfortable where he is. My blood ran cold. Nexus Tech was a dream gig. Better pay, cutting-edge projects. I'd mentioned it to Madison once, casually, and she'd brushed it off, saying, You're fine where you are, babe. Why stress? Now I knew why. She didn't want me to outgrow her control. She wanted me stuck, earning $75,000 a year, coding basic apps, while she chased guys like Alex. I sat there, staring at my phone, the betrayal sinking in like poison. She hadn't just played me, she'd tried to keep me small. The final blow came when I got home. I walked into my apartment, still a shrine to the Cowboys, and noticed something missing. My signed Emmitt Smith jersey, worth $800, was gone. Madison had taken it when she moved out, probably to pawn it for extra cash. I sank to the floor, surrounded by ticket stubs and posters, and felt like I'd lost everything. My friends? Most of them were Madison's friends first, and they ghosted me. Jake was the only one who stuck around, but even he didn't know the full story. I was alone, in a dark, empty apartment, with nothing but my thoughts and a burning question. How could I have been so stupid? That was my rock bottom. I didn't leave the apartment for days. Just sat there in the dark, replaying every moment of our relationship. The wings from Rusty's, her lucky blue socks, the way she'd fake a cheer when the Cowboys scored. It was all performance, and I'd been the audience. I felt like a fool, like every memory was tainted. I'd look at my season tickets, pinned to the wall, and feel this ache in my chest. Football used to be my escape, but now it reminded me of her. Have you ever lost something you loved because someone poisoned it? That's where I was. Lost, angry, and broken. But something shifted one night, maybe a week later. I was staring at the empty spot where my jersey used to hang, and I thought, enough. I wasn't going to let Madison win. She thought I was a tutorial mission. Fine, I'd show her what I was capable of. I didn't know how yet. but I knew I had to rebuild myself. Stronger, smarter, better. I started small. I dragged myself to the gym, the one down the street with the rusty dumbbells and flickering lights. At first, I could barely lift half my usual weight, but I kept going, every rep fueled by anger. I'd picture her face, her smirk, and push harder. Sweat stung my eyes, but it felt good, like I was taking back control. Work was next. I dusted off my resume and applied for that Nexus Tech job Madison didn't want me to have. The interview was brutal. 3 rounds, technical questions that made my head spin. But I prepared like my life depended on it, staying up till 3 a.m. studying algorithms. When I got the offer, $115,000 a year, a 53% raise. I almost cried. It wasn't just the money. It was proof I was more than what she thought. I signed the contract, packed up my old life, and moved into a sleek downtown apartment right in the heart of Dallas. The view from my window, skyscrapers glittering at night, felt like a new beginning. With my first bonus, $15,000, I did something for me. I walked into a dealership and drove out in a Ford Mustang GT, jet black, the engine roaring like a beast. I'll never forget that moment, flooring it on the highway, the sound of the V8 drowning out every doubt in my head. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was thriving. I started going to Cowboys games again, alone at first, but it felt different now. The roar of the crowd, the smell of the turf, it was mine again, not hers. I was taking back the things I loved, piece by piece. I thought I was done with Madison, that I could move on and forget her. But then, out of nowhere, my phone buzzed. It was Zoe, her best friend, the one who'd helped her ruin me. The message was simple. Wow, you're doing great, huh? Coffee sometime? My heart raced, not with hope, but with suspicion. Why was she reaching out now? I stared at the screen, the city lights reflecting off my window, and felt that old fire in my chest. Madison and Zoe thought they could play me and walk away. They were wrong. I didn't know what Zoe wanted, but I knew one thing. I was done being their pawn. What would you do if your old enemies came crawling back? Zoe thought she was clever, sliding back into my life like nothing had happened, but I was already one step ahead. When her text popped up, wow, you're doing great, huh? Coffee sometime? My first instinct was to block her. Zoe, Madison's best friend, the one who'd coached her to fake her way through our relationship, didn't get to waltz back in. But then I paused. Something about her timing felt off, like a play I hadn't seen yet. I leaned back in my new downtown apartment, the Dallas skyline glowing outside, and realized this was an opportunity. If Zoe was reaching out, Madison wasn't far behind, and I wasn't the same Tyler they'd played for a fool. Have you ever sensed a trap but walked in anyway, just to turn it against your enemies? I agreed to meet Zoe at a sleek coffee shop in Uptown, the kind with $8 lattes and glass walls. I wore a tailored blazer, a far cry from the faded Cowboys tees I used to live in, and walked in with a confidence I'd earned. Zoe was already there, perched at a corner table, her red manicure tapping her phone. She looked the same, sharp eyes, fake smile, but I noticed a nervous edge, the way her fingers twitched when she saw me. Tyler, wow, she said, standing to hug me. I let her, but kept my distance, my face neutral. You look different, I smirked. Life's been good. She laughed, too loud, and I knew. She was fishing. Over coffee, Zoe played her part perfectly. She asked about my job, my apartment, even my dating life. Her questions wrapped in flirty compliments. Nexus Tech, huh? Big leagues, she said, batting her lashes. I gave her just enough, mentioned the $115,000 salary, my Mustang GT, but kept it vague, watching her eyes light up like a predator spotting prey. She thought she was reeling me in, but I was the one setting the hook when she casually brought up Madison, saying, "Oh, she's doing fine, living her war best life." I nodded, like I didn't care. But inside, my mind was racing. Zoe wasn't here for coffee. She was here to see if I was still a mark. What would you do if you knew someone was trying to play you again? I started digging the moment I left the coffee shop. I wasn't about to let Zoe or Madison blindside me again. First, I called Jake, the only friend who'd stuck by me after the breakup. He'd heard rumors about Madison and Alex, the guy she'd cheated with in Vegas. "She's living in his penthouse," Jake said, "but it's not what you think." He sent me a link to an Instagram post. Madison at some glitzy event, draped in a designer dress, Alex's arm around her. But the comments were brutal. Gold digger vibes. Where's his wife? Wife? My pulse quickened. I did some searching, cross-referencing Alex's name with Dallas business records. Turns out, Alex was married to Tanya, a real estate mogul worth millions. Madison wasn't his fiancée. She was his mistress. I kept digging, piecing it together like a puzzle. Tanya had hired a private investigator suspecting Alex's affairs. I found a public court filing. Nothing concrete, but it mentioned pending prenup disputes. Madison was living in Alex's penthouse, but she was dodging Tanya, sneaking out when the wife came home. I hacked together a quick script to scrape Madison's LinkedIn and found her job status. Still a marketing assistant, not the director role she'd bragged about. Her posts screamed confidence, but the cracks were there. Canceled events, vague excuses about delays. She was in over her head, drowning in debt to keep up appearances. I leaned back, staring at my laptop screen, and felt a rush. Madison wasn't untouchable. She was vulnerable. And I was going to use it. The real breakthrough came when Zoe texted again, this time with an invite. "Hey, I'm going to this charity gala next month. Want to be my plus one?" My heart skipped. A gala? That's where Madison would be, parading Alex like a trophy. I remembered her Vegas posts, the way she thrived on attention. She'd be there, and so would Alex. And maybe Tanya. This was my chance. I typed back, "Sounds fun. I'm in." Zoe probably thought she'd hooked me, that I was some lonely sap desperate for her attention. She had no idea I was already planning. I needed an edge. So I called Kai, a co-worker at Nexus Tech, who owed me a favor. Kai was a genius with systems, AV setups, servers, you name it. Over beers at a dive bar, I laid out my plan. The gala would have a big AV system, screens, projectors, the works. If I could get access, I could display something unforgettable. Kai raised an eyebrow. "You're talking about hacking a charity event, man." "That's bold," I grinned. "Not hacking, just borrowing." He laughed, clinking his glass against mine. "I'm in." We spent the next week mapping it out. Kai got me the gala's AV vendor contact, posing as a tech consultant. I studied the system specs. 4K projectors, a cloud-based media server. If I could upload a file, it'd be seen by everyone. The final piece was the evidence. I'd kept every text from Madison, 2.5 years of messages, including the ones Jake had forwarded from her group chat. I combed through them, pulling the worst. Her calling me a tutorial mission, bragging about Alex, mocking my love for the Cowboys. I cross-referenced dates with Alex's posts, proving their affair overlapped with our relationship. I even found a deleted email she'd sent me by mistake, meant for Alex, with details about a weekend getaway while I was working overtime. I compiled it all into a slideshow, screenshots, timestamps, her own words. It was damning, and it was ready. The night before the gala, I sat in my apartment, the city lights painting my walls. I ran through the plan again. Zoe would get me in. Kai would handle the AV upload. I'd wait for the perfect moment, when Madison and Alex were at their peak, basking in attention, and then I'd flip the script. I pictured her face, that smug smile, crumbling as 200 people saw the truth, but there was a risk. If I got caught, I could lose my job, my reputation. I stared at my Mustang keys on the counter, the symbol of everything I'd rebuilt. Was it worth it? I thought of that empty spot where my $800 jersey used to hang, the nights I'd spent broken. Yeah, it was worth it. I stood in front of my mirror, adjusting my tie, the black suit fitting like armor. The gala was hours away, and I was ready. I'd gone from a naive coder to a man with a plan, and tonight, Madison and Alex would learn what happens when you underestimate someone like me. But as I grabbed my keys, a question lingered. Would everything go as planned, or was I walking into a trap of my own? What would you risk to take back your power? The Gala was the perfect stage for Madison's downfall, and I was ready to pull the curtain. As I stepped out of my Mustang GT, the Dallas skyline glittering behind me, I felt a surge of adrenaline. The venue, a grand ballroom draped in gold and crystal, buzzed with the city's elite, men in tuxedos, women in gowns, all sipping $200 champagne. I adjusted my tie, my heart steady despite the stakes. Tonight, I wasn't just Tyler, the coder who'd been played. I was the one calling the shots. Have you ever walked into a room knowing you're about to change everything? Zoe met me at the entrance, her emerald dress catching the light. Tyler, you clean up nice, she said, her smile too tight, like she was hiding something. I flashed a grin, playing the part. You're not so bad yourself. Her eyes lingered, searching for a crack in my confidence, but I gave her nothing. As we walked in, I scanned the room. Chandeliers sparkled overhead, waiters glided with trays of caviar, and a massive 4K screen loomed above the stage, part of the AV system Kai and I had targeted. Then I saw her, Madison across the room, in a red gown that screamed money. Alex stood beside her, his arm around her waist, laughing with a group of suits. My blood heated, but I kept my cool. Their night was about to implode. Zoe tugged my arm, pulling me toward a table. Let's mingle, she said, but I could tell she was nervous. Madison hadn't expected me here. I saw it in the way her face froze when she spotted me. Her eyes widened, then narrowed, like a predator sizing up a threat. Alex, oblivious, kept schmoozing, his Rolex glinting under the lights. I played along with Zoe, chatting up donors and dropping just enough about my Nexus Tech job to turn heads. $115,000 a year in a corner office, I said to a gray-haired CEO, who nodded, impressed. Zoe's smile faltered. She hadn't realized how far I'd come. I leaned closer to her, lowering my voice. Surprised? She laughed, but it was forced, her fingers clutching her clutch a little too tight. I excused myself, slipping toward the AV booth at the back. Kai was already there, posing as a tech assistant, his laptop open. You ready? He whispered, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. I nodded, handing him the USB drive with the slideshow. 2.5 years of Madison's lies. Condensed into a 5-minute gut punch. Wait for my signal, I said. He smirked. This is going to be epic. I glanced at the stage, where the gala's host was droning on about charity goals. The screen behind him cycled through donor names, but soon it'd show something far more interesting. My phone buzzed. A text from Kai. Systems live. You're clear. I took a deep breath, the weight of the moment settling in. This was it. I rejoined Zoe, keeping her distracted with small talk about her marketing gig. She was trying to flirt, brushing my arm, but I saw through it. She was Madison's spy, reporting back every move I made. Across the room, Madison and Alex moved toward the stage, where Alex was set to give a speech. Perfect. I caught Kai's eye, giving him a subtle nod. My heart pounded, but not from fear, from anticipation. I pictured Madison's smug smile, the one she'd worn when she called me easy at that steakhouse. Not tonight. Alex stepped onto the stage, the crowd applauding. He was all charm, his voice smooth as he thanked the donors and introduced Madison as his partner in philanthropy. She beamed, waving like a queen, her red gown glowing under the spotlight. The crowd ate it up, but I saw Tanya, Alex's wife, in the front row, her face tight. She knew something was off. I leaned toward Zoe, whispering, "Big moment for Madison, huh?" Zoe nodded, but her eyes darted nervously. She sensed trouble, but it was too late. I gave Kai the final signal. A quick tap on my glass. The screen behind Alex flickered, the donor names vanishing. A single text message appeared, blown up in bold font. Tyler's such a tutorial mission. Wait till you meet Alex. The crowd murmured, confused. Then another message. Can't wait to ditch him in Vegas. Madison's words, time-stamped, undeniable. The room went silent, every eye glued to the screen. Alex froze, his smile fading. Madison's face drained of color, her hands clutching the podium. I stood back, my expression calm. But inside, I was roaring. This was justice. The slideshow rolled on. Screenshots of Madison's group chat, her emails to Alex, photos of them together while I was still her boyfriend. The crowd gasped, whispers turning to outrage. Tanya stood, her face thunderous, and stormed toward the stage. "You lying bastard!" she shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. Alex stammered, trying to salvage it, but the evidence kept coming. Dates, times, Madison's own words mocking me, mocking him. Zoe grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. "What did you do?" she hissed. I shrugged, casual. "Just showing the truth." She looked like she might faint, her plan to reel me back in crumbling. Madison tried to run, but the crowd blocked her, their phones out, recording every second. Donors she'd schmoozed turned on her, their faces cold. Alex was cornered by Tanya, who was yelling about lawyers and prenups. The gala descended into chaos, the elite of Dallas witnessing a scandal they'd never forget. I slipped through the crowd, my work done. Kai met me at the exit, grinning. "Nailed it," he said. I nodded, my pulse still racing. "Let's get out of here." Outside, I handed the valet a fake watch, a cheap knockoff I'd bought for $20, as a tip, just to mess with him. He stared at it, confused, and I laughed, the sound echoing in the cool night air. "Best night in years," I said, sliding into my Mustang. The engine roared as I pulled away, the gala's lights fading in my rear view. I didn't need to stay and watch Madison and Alex implode. I'd seen enough. The look on her face when that first message hit the screen, pure panic, was all I needed. Have you ever felt the rush of knowing you've won, fair and square? But as I drove through the city, the skyline a blur of neon, a question lingered. I'd taken down Madison and Alex, but what came next? I'd spent so long planning this, fueled by anger, that I hadn't thought about what was on the other side. Was this the end, or just the beginning of something new? What happens when you get your revenge, but the world keeps turning? The gala was over, but the fallout was just beginning. As I drove away, the city lights streaking past my Mustang's windows, I felt a weight lift. Madison and Alex's world had crumbled in front of 200 people, and I'd made it happen, but the high of revenge didn't last long. By the time I got back to my apartment, my phone was blowing up. 47 missed calls from Zoe, a string of frantic texts begging me to talk. I didn't read them. I tossed my phone on the counter and poured a whiskey, the amber liquid catching the light. What did I want now? Justice was served, but was that enough? Have you ever won a battle and still felt something missing? The next morning, I woke to news alerts. Tanya, Alex's wife, had filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences in a prenup violation. The blogs were brutal. Photos of Madison fleeing the gala, her mascara streaked, splashed across every gossip site in Dallas. Her LinkedIn updated overnight. No longer a marketing assistant, she'd been fired. Word was she'd packed up and moved back to her hometown, working some low-end insurance gig. Alex wasn't faring better. His company's stock dipped 8% after investors caught wind of the scandal. Tanya's lawyers were tearing him apart. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the headlines, and felt satisfied. Not happy, not yet, but satisfied. They'd paid a price. Zoe's apology came in the mail a week later. A handwritten letter, 3 pages of excuses and crocodile tears. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she wrote, claiming she was caught up in Madison's mess. I read it once, then tossed it into the fireplace. The paper curled and blackened, the flames eating her words. I blocked her number, her socials, everything. She'd been complicit, whispering in Madison's ear, and I wasn't in the business of second chances. The past was done. and I was ready to let it burn. Have you ever had to cut someone out completely to move forward? Life settled into a new rhythm. I threw myself into work at Nexus Tech, landing a project that bumped my salary to $120,000. The Mustang purred on my weekend drives, and I started hitting Cowboys games again, the roar of the crowd washing away the last of Madison's shadow. But something was still off. Revenge had closed one chapter, but it hadn't filled the hole she'd left. I wasn't lonely, not exactly, but I was searching for something real, something Madison had never been. Then I met Emma. It was at a charity football game, one of those feel-good events where tech bros and locals play for a cause. I was quarterbacking, not half bad, when this woman in a Cowboys cap heckled me from the sidelines. "Nice spiral, but your footwork's trash," she yelled, grinning. I laughed, caught off guard, and tossed her the ball. She caught it, one-handed, then fired it back, nearly knocking me over. After the game, I found her by the bleachers, still in that cap, quoting the 2005 Cowboys lineup like it was scripture. Her name was Emma, 28, a data analyst who loved football. Not because someone coached her, but because it was in her blood. We clicked instantly. Over beers at a dive bar, she called out my sloppy pass in the third quarter, then broke down why Tony Romo was underrated. She wasn't faking it. Her eyes lit up when she talked about the game, the same way mine did. For the first time in years, I felt seen, not played. We started dating, and it was different from Madison. No games, no lies. Just two people who loved the same things, laughing over nachos and bad ref calls. One night, as we watched a Cowboys game on my couch, she leaned against me, and I realized this was what I'd been missing. Not revenge, but this. Something real. Looking back, I learned a lot from Madison's betrayal. Don't fake love for something you hate. It'll unravel. Don't underestimate someone before they've had their shot to shine. And don't mess with a guy who knows that football, like revenge, takes patience, strategy, and the perfect moment. I'm not proud of every step I took, but I'm proud of where I landed. What's the biggest lesson you've learned from a betrayal